So it's coming on winter, and I felt inspired by these really cool gray days, and I had a dream about some colors that I wanted to use in a painting that I was working on. So I started out, I added some ivory black, which I never do usually, Georgia, ultramarine violet from Gamblin, some Paris blue from Charvin, and some phthalo turquoise. Then I also had some permanent rose from Winsor Newton, Georgian's raw sienna because it's transparent, a yellow from Georgia, De La Rowney, and some white. So these are the colors laid out. And then I mixed up a bunch of some different kinds of purples and grays with the cold wax. This is the first time using a pre-mixed color by Charvin, but it just was so gorgeous I decided that, I would incorporate it in. So I'm just laying on the cold wax and oil mixture. I'm using a Messermeister bowl scraper, and I kind of like this bowl scraper better than a lot of the other ones out there, primarily because some of the other ones get this weird ripple if they are exposed to too much solvent. And it's kind of fun if you want to get a squiggly line, but if you're trying to lay things smooth, I like this bowl scraper. If you order directly from Messermeister, they're actually a lot less expensive than on Amazon. So I don't always pre-prime my canvas with a particular color. This time I decided to try a bright yellow foundation because of all the purples and because there's going to be a lot of gray moments. I thought it might give me a little vibrancy to pull back to at some point. But at this stage of the game, I'm really just trying to cover the whole panel with a layer of the cold wax. And I'd say I probably have 30 to 40% of cold wax in it. If you add too much cold wax, it's going to become more transparent. And at this point, I wasn't looking for a transparency. I really want to build up the surface before I start playing around too much. This is inspired by a winter photograph I took. Anyone who's familiar with my work knows that I paint this particular series of buildings a lot. And it's primarily because they are right in front of me between my cottage porch and the water. So I often stare at the back of this cottage and watch the light play across it. And there's just something I think that's beautiful and elegant about the simple structure, and I find it a very peaceful image to meditate on. So that's what I'm going for in this particular piece, is this really kind of meditative, quiet space. So there's a lot of adjustments to the purple that I'm putting down. It's becoming more influenced by the permanent magenta at times, and sometimes it's a more grayed purple, sometimes it's a more blue violet. I think ultimately I am going to pull in, or I will talk about it, a little bit of ultramarine blue just to push the violet to a little more of a blue violet in areas. My ultramarine violet was still a little too red violet, and I wanted just to push it a little more blue violet. But basically now I'm just covering up all the... As you can see, this is very different from the last video I posted of my more abstract series, where I hadn't thought as much about how things were going to be laid out. So now I'm flipping it around in case you didn't realize it was upside down. And I was just getting so excited about seeing the yellow peeking through. I thought I would experiment and see about pulling back to the exposing some of the yellow as some of the bright highlights in the clouds. And then again, I was having so much fun with that, I thought maybe I would lift a little off because I didn't really like the look of those marks. I thought I'd try lifting some marks off by just kind of scribbling and drawing on the paper with the back of a paintbrush or with a rubber tool, and seeing what would happen if I kind of lifted in a more sensitive way. And it kind of had a cool effect, but then the wax got kind of smushed in ways I didn't like, so I want to smooth it out. And the more I looked at it, I'm like, I don't really want to be that fussy about something at this layer. So even though it was cool and I liked the effect, I ultimately decided that it wasn't the right time. And because it's cold wax, I will always be able to scrape back to this yellow if I really wanted to. Or I could re-add the yellow at a later time. And I guess that was what I was thinking, that a detail like that, it's kind of like adding the highlight onto something a little too soon in the process. So as much as the detail was kind of cool and I liked the effect, the actual brilliance of that yellow hitting the top edge of those clouds, I felt really should be a thicker application of paint and not be created by scraping back to the yellow, because it didn't really make sense. So it takes me a while to discover that, but you'll see eventually I'm just going to get rid of it. But now I decided I'm going to add some coloration to the buildings. And like I said, I don't usually use black as a color or to influence my colors, but I was looking at the ingredients in a lot of the paints online, and what pigments they were actually made of, and I was surprised at the number of pigments that were created using ivory black into the mixture. So I was like, I'm always relying on complements usually to dull and gray things, and I still do, but I thought it would be interesting to just see how the black plays as a color now and then. So again, this is another little mini bowl scraper that I actually got from Squeegee Press, because it was a small version. The edge of that one holds up really well too. I haven't seen that one ripple. Some of the others, including the little brushes, little silicone brushes, they get this weird ripple once you use them in the paint too much. So I'm just... Now there's a credit card. There's my other secret tool that I like to use a lot. Any kind of old credit card that I've received in the mail. It doesn't lay down the cold wax quite as thickly, but it's a really great tool. I love it because it stays nice and it's nice and flexible. There I am checking it. Something. Oh, this might be when I was deciding that the sky has to go. Yep, I'm looking at it saying, I like it, but yeah, nope, you're out of here. So, maybe at some point that effect will come back, but not in the same way. So let's just spread some of the paint around. I love that really matte, smooth surface that you can get by the cold wax. And I could roll it on, but I would get a thinner version. So I wanted to build up a nice thick layer of paint. This way, here's why I'm pulling on a little blue. It's like, yeah, I need a little, because some of these buildings I wanted to push to a more blue-gray. And again, these are not necessarily the final colors that are going to happen. This is going to be a multiple video performance. It's not going to get completed by any means in this session. But I thought it would be nice to show one of my more quiet, contemplative house paintings from start to finish. I'm usually showing my more chaotic ones. Primarily, probably because I try to remember what the heck I did, and by videoing it, I can get some kind of a clue into it. My houses are a little more straightforward. I've been doing them for a long time, and I know a little bit more of the effect I'm going for. But I still like to get kind of some of that mystery of the layers, how the other colors peek through. Again, I usually work on a white canvas, but this particular time I decided to throw the complement underneath to see if I could get a little vibration happening now and then. And I will probably reintroduce more of that yellow in some of the top layers after to pull this whole painting together. Again, I'm trying to stay open to serendipity. Here's one of those little silicone tools. They come in different sizes, but it did get ripply pretty quickly in the process, so I abandoned it. Again, I had preliminary sketches that I had done. I have revisited this image a few times, and I did draw the buildings onto my panel with, I don't know, some kind of crayon. I don't remember what particularly I used, but so the composition has been well planned out, and it does. Compositions don't just come together and happen. I spend a lot of time thinking about every negative shape and how the negative shapes balance and how all the squares knit together to emote this feeling of, stillness and centeredness. And now I'm bringing in a little bit more of a pinker, probably a little more permanent rose. I will take some close-up shots before I begin the next session so that you can see a little bit of what's going on.